So we've been discussing a lot recently what's likely to come in a second term from Trump. And I think the biggest thing to recognize is that he's surrounding himself this time with loyalists and sycophants. Whereas the last time you still had remnants of the old guard around him. And look, in some ways the old guard is actually worse, but in some very crucial, important ways they're better. So when I say they're better, I mean like when Trump tried to do the Insurrection Act to send the military to crack down on American protesters, that's when the generals around him were like, we're not doing that shit. We're not deploying the U.S. military in our own streets. That's one example. Another example is a guy like Bill Barr, an establishment Republican. Trump tried to instruct him to seize the voting machines and to send out a letter saying there's fraud in this election, and he refused to do it. He said, I'm not doing that, right? So what happens in a scenario where there's no brakes in the car, where everybody around him is a yes man? It ain't pretty. It ain't pretty to think about. Well, now Midas Touch got this video here that I have to share with you. This is a former Trump staffer, John McEntee. And he's one of the people who worked on the big Project 2025. It's called Project 2025. It's all the right-wing think tanks got together, and they came up with their big, long agenda as to what they want to do the next time Trump's in power. And look, he's going to say the quiet part out loud here yet again. These people can't hide it. Can't hide their extremism. So he's talking to Michael Knowles, one of the weirdest little conservative freaks in the game, and look at what he says.
The elephant in the room, which is a stain on not only society, but the entire dating culture, which is pornography.
Yeah.
And I think whenever America bans that, which will be happening at some point, everyone will be much better off. I know, people are like, well, you've never seen that? Heroin addicts know heroin's bad, So like people, just because they've used it at some point, it's still addressing that fact. I think, guys have this way distorted view of the world and how that should work. And the minute that goes away, this country will flourish. I actually do believe it.
He's confidently saying, as a Trump insider, oh yeah, we're going to ban porn. We're going to ban porn. Now look, under normal circumstances, I would see this and I'd say, cap. That's not happening. It's just not. Because it seems so extreme that I can't see us sliding that far back, right? But then you stop and think about it, and it's like, well, hold on. None of us really thought Roe versus Wade could be overturned. None of us thought that would happen. Guess what? It happened. And not only did it happen, and then, like, virtually all the red states immediately, they flipped into, enact that law from 1864, ban all abortion. In some states, no exceptions for rape or incest. We all thought, hey, this one is set in stone. This right is here, and it's not going anywhere. And then boom, gonzo. In the blink of an eye, gonzo. There's the old Martin Luther King philosophy that, what is it? The moral arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. Soon as that happened, I was like, I'm not sure I buy that anymore. I think I believe in what I'd call the chaos theory, which is like shit just happens, right? And the work on the ground matters from the different activists, whether on the right or the left, but it seems like it's more like a basketball game or something where at times one team could be up 12 and then you check the clock 2 minutes later and boom, the other team now has a 6-point lead. They surged back. That's what it feels like more to me. And that's really unsettling. So remember, guys, and we've covered this in detail in different states. A lot of red states, and even some non-red states, correct me if I'm wrong on that in the comment section, but they're passing these laws now where they're mandating what they say is age verification to go on these porn websites. Well, come to find out, what does that actually mean? It means if you live in certain states and you want to go look at porn, they make you put in like your driver's license information. So these motherfuckers are keeping a file on what everybody's into sexually. You want to talk about Orwellian. You want to talk about big government. You want to talk about getting involved in your private life. You think Steve down the street wants people to know he's into feet? You think Steve wants people to know he's a foot guy? You think everybody wants to get their business all messed with and have the government peeking at what's going on? And by the way, you're super naive if you think like, nah, it's okay. That's, nobody checks or cares or keeps a file. It's just a quick little... There's literally no reason to believe that. We saw how they abused the Patriot Act. Everybody saw how they abused the Patriot Act. Edward Snowden gave us all the leaks and was saying, look, man, people were spying on their exes and whatnot. It was a mess. There was all sorts of unfair, unreasonable, creepy stuff going on behind the scenes there. So we already have in some states this mission creep to effectively ban porn. And now he's coming out saying, we're going to do it at the federal level. By the way, in that scenario, the only things that could save you would be the courts. You know the Democrats aren't going to fight back. You know the Democrats aren't going to fight back. Because what do you think? There's going to be some rousing campaign speech where somebody's talking about the right to see backshots? Like what? No, Democrats don't have the balls to even fight back on stuff where 98% of the population, like universal background checks. When was the last time you saw a Democrat even fight back on gun rights in a way that was like really moved the needle? So they can't fight back on gun rights. They're not going to fight back on, the right to go to Pornhub. That's not going to happen. So then you'd be relying on the courts to step in and say, hey, man, this is a First Amendment violation. We can't let this stand. And I don't know, man. The courts are stacked in a right-wing direction also. So you're really rolling the dice on that one. Now, maybe ultimately, every now and then, sometimes on First Amendment issues, they come down on the proper side, even though they generally have a right-wing bias. Do you really want to roll the dice on that? Do you really want to roll the dice on that? They're now openly talking about banning porn, bro. Can you imagine living in a country where people have to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs to survive, to pay the bills? Inflation's going up. Housing is basically unaffordable now completely. And then in that country, the one saving grace is people generally felt like, hey, we got social freedoms, right? I can go drink a beer. I can go watch porn or whatever. Now they're coming for that shit too. What a dystopian nightmare. All at the same time that we're arming and funding a genocide. We got all the money in the world to send to Ukraine and Taiwan and Israel. But God forbid we do something to address the homeless crisis here. 600,000 Americans homeless. Under 100,000, roughly thereabouts, are veterans, U.S. veterans, and they're homeless. So we got money for a genocide, but not to house our homeless veterans. Now they want to ban porn. What's terrifying about this video is how confident he is when he says it. Oh yeah, we're going to ban porn. And he got Michael Knowles sitting there, nodding along in agreement, as if his browser history isn't full of all freaky ass shit. You can take one look at Michael Knowles and know you don't want to see that motherfucker's browsing history. It slaps you across the face, that's for sure. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.